Okay.
Let's get started with this week's webcast. Everybody that's watching, you're just stuck with me today. Tim was not able to join us today, but he will be with us next week. Um, so let's dive right in. We'll talk about today's topic, which is the concept of trust and transparency. Or maybe I should say that the other way around. Having complete transparency and what makes you unique and strengths and even weaknesses, which is kind of a scary thing to talk about. I don't think anybody likes to talk about weaknesses. Um, but sometimes that can lend more credibility or again trust into what you really do well. And so I want to talk about some strategies. I'll kick us off. I'll talk about some strategies, especially from a marketing communications perspective, that I have found works really well in terms of how to create that trust and in even highlight why families join you, why they may not join your community, how to highlight that in your marketing. So when I say in your marketing, it could be your website, your advertising, normal communication with families. So I'll give you some tactical strategies today on how to implement those, and maybe I'll kick things off with a quick story, thinking about how we chose the school for my daughter, and I thought that their level of, I'm not sure if it was transparency, but let me set the stage for you. We're looking, we're outside the Philadelphia area. Uh, well, many would consider a very competitive private school market. It's like you drive right down the street and you drive by, it's like 10 different private schools, and they're all really great. And we have a really great public school system here, right? When you look at all the rankings, right, you've got the top two, three public schools in the state, right in this area. So really great schools. And to a degree, it seems like you can't really go wrong, but it's always a matter of figuring out what is the best fit for our family, right? And so I remember we went to a fall festival and a lot of parents there, admissions director, head of school. We're talking with the admissions director, and we then we meet the head of school, and the head of school hits me with a question like, what? Why are you considering our school for your daughter? And I don't know why I was like flustered answering it. I was like, oh, we're looking for a school with great academics and things like that. He goes, yeah, 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 yeah. He almost like blew off the question and or the answer, I should say. He goes, look, every school here has great academics, right? He goes, if you go to this school, that school, like you can't go wrong. But here's why families choose our school, and it was all about letting. And it was a school that goes up to eighth grade. It was all about letting kids be kids longer, right? It was all about teaching kids respect, and all about the community and the environment, and the letting kids be kids and how they do that. And and then he even said, like, look, there are some schools that beginning in like kindergarten, they're prepping you to get ready for Harvard, right?
Mhm.
We're not that school, right? We're not doing that. There are schools that are hyper focused on athletics, right? And they have great athletics programs. We're not that school. If you want those things, great. Those are great schools. If you want this, and again, he went into more about what this is, but just again about really the concept of letting kids be kids, like that's what we're really great at. And I'll follow that up with, not only did he say that, but the parents said the exact same thing. The teachers said the exact same thing. Their website said the exact same thing. Their admissions director said the same exact thing. So everybody was really on the same page. And that seems like an obvious thing to do. But I've been working in the capacity I work in with marketing and software and helping schools with building their admission campaigns. I've heard the conversations, right, where it's like, how do I handle if my teacher's telling families one thing and I'm saying another? And, so I know that cohesion is not always an obvious one or one that exists. So I point out that story just to highlight that, like, and look, we enrolled there and that was a for us, it was like, oh, this isn't just marketing speak, right? Because everybody said you could say what you want on your website, but when everybody kind of says the same thing, but also in a disarm, especially with the head of school, in a disarming way, where it was like, okay, I really, I appreciate that, right? It's like they're not saying like, oh yeah, yes, we have athletics, but we're not hyper focused on the athletics per se. We have all that. We have great facilities, and I'll show an example here of I think how that played out really well with Tim in his advertising. I mentioned in last week's uh, webcast that Tim, I think his campaign that he ran for school at Newgate, I think still holds, I'll call the record for the best ad metrics when it came to like click-through rates and conversion rates. And I don't have it prepared. Let me see if I can grab it here. But his advertising actually said, um, proudly no football teams since 1984. Talk about, you know, saying, being very clear about who we are and who we aren't. And so if you're looking for that, great. We're not the best fit, but if you don't care about that, yeah, here's who we're looking for. So I'm going to share some tactical strategies about how to do that with with marketing. But I wanted to highlight that I thought that was a really great example of, you don't necessarily need to say, here's what we're not good at or weaknesses or anything like that. You frame it around, here's who we are. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. Bronwyn, I know that you're the only one on here live right now. I don't want to put you on the spot, but questions, thoughts, anything you've done in particular around this concept of just blatant transparency about who we are, maybe who we aren't.
Uh, right, maybe just to say a word about my context. So, I'm British and I work in Poland in a bilingual English and
Okay.
Polish school. So my setting's a bit different from yours. So, I think one of the key things for parents where I am is the fact that we're bilingual and we have English native speaker teachers, and that's one big draw really for parents, yeah, aside from the Montessori. So they often actually come for the bilingualism instead of the Montessori. I mean, some are driven, to come for Montessori. So we have a kind of double message, if you like, that we're about English language bilingualism and Montessori. Um, yeah, I'm just trying to think about relating that more closely to the point you were
Sure.
making, right? So
Do
about who
you,
we're
do
not.
you not even necessarily maybe who you're not, do you have a lot of competitors in your area, or how many, or do you find that families that are looking for what you offer, they're also looking for two, three, four other schools by chance, or maybe
It's
not?
a kind of developing market right now. So obviously we're competing with free as you are in the States. But there are a number of private schools, and the number of private schools is growing, and the birth rate is decreasing in Poland.
Hmm,
So the competition year by year gets tougher and tougher, right?
interesting. Well, let's talk about that. Regardless, of extreme competition, or maybe it's increasing competition, ultimately, we want families to think, okay, is this the right fit, right?
Of course.
So
Mhm.
it's right. So it's like, how do we communicate the right fit? And um, I'll share in a second kind of an exercise that I like to go through, especially when building out communication on websites, and with advertising. Let me see. Yeah, why don't we dive into this? Let me share my screen. I'll just walk through this and talk through it. And let me also grab one other. Hold on, everybody bear with me, especially if you're watching this as a recording, which is weird to talk to people on a recording, but if you're watching this, let me see. Here we go. The family journey. And I like to use this as a reference point um, about why it's so important in our communication. So when we think about what the family journey is now in choosing a school, right, and evaluating their options, let's go to center view. So it starts with awareness, right? They need to become aware that you exist, that you're an option for them, and so that could happen through social media. It could be word of mouth. It could be they saw a billboard, or they just drove by the school, whatever it might be. And then what they do is they go search on Google and they're searching for your school, other schools, schools near me, Montessori schools near me. Um, then they're looking at your reputation, right? Or they're not necessarily reputation, but they're also just doing their research. They're reading your website, they're talking with friends and family, they're checking out social media, they're checking out those local parent groups on Facebook, they're looking at your reviews. And it's at this point, after doing all this kind of research online and talking with people, that they're going to decide, hey, is this worth my time to schedule a tour to talk with the admissions director? And I point this out because so much of this is going on without even talking with somebody at the admissions department or seeing campus, right? Because of the world that we live in, which we all know is, the digital world, and we can get a lot of answers or get a lot of our questions answered without talking with anybody. That we need to figure out, how do we win at all these stages? How do we influence that decision making? And this is all going to come back to building that trust. So I've talked with a lot of schools where they say, you know what, man, if I could just get them on campus, if I could just take them on a tour, show them the classrooms, let them meet the teachers, we're good, right? And I think a lot of schools probably feel that way. It's just a matter of, how do we get them there? And this all revolves around the trust factor.
Mm.
um, how do we influence that decision making? And that's where it comes down to, and there's a lot of pieces to that puzzle, right? This isn't just one of them, but trust, if you kind of sits above everything else, or really becomes the foundation. That, okay, I think that this is going to be the right choice for my family. So here's an exercise that I like to go through, and again, I'm coming at this from the marketing angle. Probably, what's your position at your school?
Owner director.
Okay. So yeah, and then so I'm going to be taking the marketing angle from this, and thinking about, okay, if I know they're looking at my website, my social media, they're trying to find me, they're looking at my ads. Let's see, we got one more person. Like, we have one more person joining us. Cool. Um, yeah. Um, so let me share with you an exercise. So this is an exercise that I like to call, like, differentiating yourself with your website. But this also could be used for anything, not just your website. But ultimately, let me skip ahead. The first thing I like to do is sit down, and this is a really great exercise to do with your team, right? Especially the admissions director or whoever is giving tours, whoever is talking with families. This is a really great exercise to do, which is, what are the questions your families are asking every time they have a tour? What is it that they want? Um, so it's kind of, what are all their questions? And then also answering those, which is, why do families enroll? How is their life, their child's life, going to be better when they graduate? I call that like the portrait of a graduate. And so it's just sitting down and just brainstorming that, because then that can give the foundation for your website and all of your communication in terms of how to differentiate. So let me see here. yeah. So action step number one, we're not necessarily going to wireframe a website today, but I do want to highlight how we can incorporate this into the website because at the end of the day, everybody's also going to land on your homepage. So we want to make sure the homepage of your website reflects and highlights those differences. Let me see here. Yeah, so we want to do step one, what do your families want? Step two, what problems might they be facing in choosing a school? Is it that there's a lot of, when I say problems, that might sound weird, but do they have a lot of options? Right? That's kind of a problem where it's, man, we've got all of these great schools. How do I choose the right fit? Or is it, maybe they're at another school and they're switching. What might they be experiencing at other schools? Um, and they're trying to again find that right fit. Um, how does it make them feel when they're unable to make that decision? And I'm going to show you some example websites about how we communicated this on in our advertising and in our marketing. Right. So let me, and I'm going to work backwards here in a second. And then ultimately, why can they trust you? Right. So what we're doing here is we're essentially telling the story, which is here's what we offer. We understand that you have a lot of options. You're looking for a school that does X, Y, and Z. And if that's what you're looking for, here's what we offer, and here's why you can trust us. And let's keep going. And let me see. And then we want to start painting a picture of the future. So this is a really good kind of workflow of how to tell a story in all of your communication. So if I think back to choosing the school for my daughter, what's the challenge that they realize that they have? Well, they have a couple main challenges. One is their challenge was they're up against a lot of competition. Number two, their competition many of the schools go up to 12th grade. Their school goes up to 8th grade. So the big challenge they had to overcome was why should your family choose a school that goes to 8th grade versus one that goes to 12th grade? Now that's not every school's challenge, but that was their challenge. So that's where going back to doing an exercise like this is really important, right? It's like what are they looking for? What are the challenges we're looking to overcome? And I was actually helping them with their marketing as well. And we ended up writing a guide, which was K to 8 versus K to 12. Which one is best for you? So I'm going to get into this in a second, but creating um, thought leadership type content is really important for building that trust and transparency. Let me see if there's anything else I had here, but we'll go through some examples. But yeah, I wanted to show you how this can look kind of in practice. Let's see. I think this is the page. Yep. Okay. So one of my favorite things to do when it comes to um, website content is having a section like this. Are we right for you? So is KCS right for you? So this is an interesting school. They're in Canada and they have a very unique school. Um, they don't have traditional classrooms. As they say, Toronto is their campus. So they're not necessarily in a classroom looking at the chalkboard, taking notes. They are out and about in the community, going to um, different businesses and government buildings to that's really their classroom. So things like, are you looking for entrepreneurial opportunities? So what they realized is a lot of families are entrepreneurs and they want their children to be entrepreneurs. So as part of going through this exercise, they realized, are you looking for entrepreneurial opportunities? Right. So it's not always just going to be one type of family. Not everybody's looking for that, but are you looking for entrepreneurial opportunities? Do you want a caring and safe community? I'm going to talk about that one here in a second. Um, do you want a school that's small by design? Right. That can also kind of fly in the face of, or what families might be looking for. One of the common things I hear a lot from smaller schools is, yeah, we might lose some families in like middle school or going into high school because they realize they might want a bigger school, right? They're looking for the big athletic programs, and that's going to happen regardless. But I also think that if you embrace and I like the concept of small by design or the power of small, that by embracing that, you're attracting those families that are looking for something a little bit smaller, especially compared to maybe a free option. So if you don't have this already, I encourage having this
Mm-hmm.
on on your website, where are we right for you, and
Really nice
having,
idea.
oh, go ahead.
Yeah, that's a really nice idea.
Yeah, the visual I like to think about on this is a parent reading it and nodding their head, right?
Mm,
And they're saying, yeah, this is what I'm looking for. And then the perfect bridge to this now is, okay, are we right for you? And now here's why families love us,
mm-hmm.
right? So you typically want to nail this down to three things, saying, okay, if you answered yes to any of these questions, then we may be the perfect fit for your family. Why families love us. And now you're stating that authority, or stating the reasons why, stating authority, having testimonials. And so now you're doing everything to kind of reinforce it.
Mm-hmm.
And the more vividly you can describe or empathize with what a family's looking for, maybe challenges they're being faced with. Maybe it's like, we understand you have a lot of options, you're looking for the best fit, and you don't want to make a mistake. We get it, so that's why we wanted to be talk to you about exactly who we are. Let me show you one other example. Go dot. This is something that we do for the schools that utilize our software and need help with with their marketing. We'll build this something like this for them, which is choosing the right private school and insert your location. Like, so Brown, you could say, a parent's guide to choosing the right school in Poland,
Mm-hmm.
or a particular area in Poland. Um, for me, choosing the right private school in outside, in Philadelphia or Delaware County, which is a county outside Philadelphia. So you have a guide that they download, and it gives them all their options. Like, you have public, you have charter, you have uh, faith based, you have
Mm-hmm.
Montessori, right? And then you have a whole section about why families choose us. So something like this can
Clever. Mm-hmm.
allow you to, yeah, speak to certainly what makes us unique and the clear differences. Like, hey, if you're
Mm-hmm.
looking for that, great. Then we're not a great fit. Um, I think something Tim always says. Tim Selden is talking about repelling those where you're just not a good fit, right? You don't want them
Mm,
to come
sure.
and be a disruption. I mean, not a disruption per se, but if they don't have a great experience and they leave the school, it just it's not great for anybody. So
Mm-hmm.
the more you can really communicate and articulate who you're for and who you're not for, um, the better long term health of the enrollment.
Mm-hmm.
So again, Bronwyn, being that you're the only one on here, not to put you on the spot, but questions, thoughts?
Yeah, this is really nice. I really like the ideas you presented. Sorry, I've got a bit of a cough.
No worries.
Time of the year.
Yeah, and one of the things that, especially from a marketing standpoint, for anybody that's watching, um, so many schools will come to me and they'll say, okay, we want to do advertising, we need to fill more seats, right? All the reasons you want to do your marketing and advertising, things like that. Um, but before we start doing that, we do this exercise, which is, what do your families want? What are their challenges? This messaging becomes the foundation of everything: your social media, your website, your advertising, and everything becomes so much easier. But it has to start here. Otherwise, messaging can get a little bit disjointed. You can almost sometimes feel like we're trying to be everything to everyone, which doesn't work either. Let me see if there's anything else on this page that I wanted to highlight. Paint a picture of the future, testimonials. Yeah, talk a lot about lead magnets. So this, for anybody that's not familiar, we call this a lead magnet or an
Hmm.
inquiry magnet. So this is something like kindergarten readiness guides, finding the right private school.
Hmm.
Oh, here's the example of the N to 8 or K to 12, which provides the greatest outcome. So there's a good one. So these downloadable guides can be really great educational pieces. And then from a tactical standpoint, since they have to give you their information, now you're building your database of families that are
And
interested. And then you can market to them, throughout the year practically for free through email.
hmm.
Let's see. We talked about this last week, but I don't want us to get into all that. Okay. All right. So those were some of my main points. Again, Bronwyn, when it comes to what have you found works really well in communicating with your families? Why do you find that what's the number one thing they're looking for in choosing you? And I know you mentioned there's, whether
Mm.
it's, the immersion aspect or Montessori, but
Hmm.
um, what do you think is your big differentiator?
Uh, I think many Polish schools they're very run in a very traditional way, so they're very focused on grades.
Hmm.
The communication with pupils often might not be very respectful. It might not be an individualized approach. So a lot of those families know what they don't want, right? So they're
Right.
looking for respectful relationships, education based on relationships, individualized approach, hands-on learning. Because in the area where I am, I mean, there really isn't that much Montessori at all, right?
Hmm.
So there's only one other Montessori school in my city at the moment, and it's a big city, right? Um, so in general, they're looking for something different. They're also looking for a multicultural environment, which we have obviously with with the English language. So we have many pupils from abroad. So they like the fact that we're multicultural, we're diverse, we employ native speaker teachers. So our staffing body is diverse with many different nationalities. We have 10% of our children from international families. Um, and the school looks nice, right? You know, the classrooms are big, lots of light. Yeah, it's an attractive place. So mm, those are the things that come to mind, really.
Do you find it a challenge? So because there's not a lot of Montessori, like how common is it there? Are they aware of what Montessori offers, or do you feel like there's a lot of education that is needed?
An
Um,
awful lot of education is needed. Um, there's a certain perspective of many parents that for education to be effective, it needs to be based on grades. It needs to be kind of tough
mm,
psychologically. Um, and Montessori in Poland is a more recent thing compared with the United States, right? In the United States, Montessori has been around for decades, and there's plenty of scientific research done based around outcomes, positive outcomes of Montessori education. And that just isn't the case in Poland, right? There was communism, which fell at the end of the 80s, but then for the whole Montessori community to get going took a while. And as it stands, there isn't really any, scientific research done, yeah, into Montessori outcomes. So in discussions with parents, I'm often saying, well, in America, they've done lots of research into this and it works. The issue in Poland is that the vast majority of Montessori schools are simply private. So there's just like a handful of public schools. So it's difficult to even start any scientific research, because, if you have an economic, social situation where you've got families who can afford private schools, well, that's not representative of the entire population, right? Whereas scientific research done in the United States, there are plenty of Montessori public schools. So then you can compare children who everybody wanted to get into the public Montessori school. These families got in, these families didn't get in, and compare the results, right? So that's a big challenge where I'm based. Year by year, the awareness improves, but it's it takes time, right, for people to even have trust in Montessori, even though there
Yeah.
is the research out there that it's very effective.
Yeah, and thank you for sharing that. That's really interesting. That was my thought, was that the education there must be just one of those hurdles to overcome, right? And so in thinking about that, my where my mind was going is like thinking about having one of those sections on your website, or if you don't have it already, where it's like not necessarily calling out, but the other options, but saying like, hey, you know, we're different. This is why we're different. If you're looking, even if flipping it around, if you're looking for a school that's traditional classrooms, and then highlighting all of that, we're not a right fit. Here's how we do it instead, and here's why. According to these statistics, um, children learn better, and here's what we do and why we do it. So I actually think and I was just kind of going through and kind of sequencing out that conversation, and
Mm,
I think that can be, like you were saying, there's some people that might repel, and that's okay. But
mm,
then it's also going to be extra attractive for those saying, "Yeah, I get it. I don't want the traditional anymore.
mm,
I think there's a better way."
mm.
And I think we can all kind of relate to that to a degree, right? Especially when you're looking at your school compared to public. Um, and I was thinking about another school that I worked with where there weren't a lot of private schools in their area, but there's a lot of public, and they were trying to figure out how to create that education, how to create that awareness. Not so much awareness, but why us versus them, especially when you have to pay us and the other option is free. That's the age-old comparison.
Mm,
And we ran a lot of tests with the marketing and the advertising. And from doing parent surveys, what they found is, families were looking for community
exactly.
and safety, and so the question becomes, how do we create that transparency around, like, how do we say that, right? And what we did was, and a really great thing to do is get your parents to say it,
Mm,
right? So you don't necessarily want to have an ad that's saying, we're safe and but have your parents say, hey, we came from the public schools. We're so happy that we made the switch because now my child's happy. They feel loved. It's a caring community. All those words that go into that. And so
mm,
that's the other thing I was going to mention, in thinking about creating that education, especially drawing a clear distinction between your the other options that are available to you, is have your
mm,
parents say it, right? Get them on video, have them
mm,
write it. Um, that can be really, really powerful.
mm.
Let me
Yeah, the
see
other thing
here.
about our school is we also have an international program. So this is also something special. So for families from abroad, international families, we're the only school that has both Montessori and an international program as well as a bilingual program. So yeah, that's another thing which is attractive.
Yeah, that would be extremely attractive, right? And that's what establishes that authority. Yeah,
Mm.
and that's a huge. Oh, you know what I wanted to do? Speaking of authority, it just reminded me. Let me share my screen again. And I hope I was sharing my screen the whole time. I had a panic there
Yeah,
for a
you were.
second. Okay, I had a panic there that I wasn't sharing my screen. A really good, if anybody's looking for a good book on marketing and messaging, one of my favorites is it's called Story Brand,
Mhm.
and it's how to clarify your message. Now, it's not just for schools; it's for all businesses, but it's a really great book. And essentially, this foundation that I was going through was from this book, and it's essentially how to treat your school like the guide for your families.
Mhm.
So, when talking about a story, in every story, you have a hero and you have a guide. And the hero is your families, and you, the school, are the guide, guiding them to help them make the best decision for them. and then it takes you through like a psychological framework about how to do that. And so there is there's a great book by Donald Miller called Story Brand,
Hmm.
and it really gives a great foundation for your website. And then let me think, is it mystorybrand.com? Oh, it looks like they rebranded this. Oh, it's AI. There's this My Story Brand, oh, yeah, mystorybrand.com. That if you go here, it actually it is free, and it can help guide you in creating that messaging that is unique to, as they would say, your business, your school,
Hmm.
your customer, otherwise known as your parents. I think this is great. I think it's a great resource that, and what I was talking about before, like brainstorming, this helps kind of put a structure around that brainstorming. So yeah, story brand. It's just one of those things that um, I tend to go back to time and time again. There's a lot of great
Hmm.
content out there, but this is one of my favorites.
Great, useful to know. Hmm.
Well, all right. Well, Bronwyn, do you have any questions or anything specific? I mean, hey, while we have the time, that was the main content that I wanted to go over. Was there any
Hmm.
questions you had? Anything I could answer?
It was really helpful what you presented. Um, really nice ideas.
Oh,
Mm, but I think I'm good, right? I don't have any
sure.
particular questions that come to mind. I've got lots to go away and digest, reflect
Well,
on.
if you do, reply to any of the emails that you ever get to come, come here, and Tim and I are happy to help. For you, for everybody else. If you go
Mhm.
to Montessori Foundation's YouTube page, all
Sure.
the videos are living there. So this will be on there, and as well as, geez, I don't even know how many we've had so far, but I think we're up well past 20
Hmm.
webcasts. So they're all on there. And as you're going through, if you have any questions, need any
Sure.
support with anything, let myself or Tim know. We're
Okay, yeah,
happy
I'm
to
going to be
help.
checking those out. Thank you so much. It's really
Cool.
helpful.
Well, thanks for joining. It was a good
Okay.
one-on-one session.
Okay.
Thanks for keeping me company here, and I hope to see you on
You're
the
very
upcoming
welcome. It was a
sessions.
pleasure.
Take care.
Okay, take
Bye.
care. Bye then. Bye bye.